3 years ago, Muzhun gave up everything to help the man she loved chase his dream. She sold her family's only inheritance, opened a small medical clinic, and worked tirelessly day and night just to support Wei Shiken while he prepared for the imperial examination. She believed every sacrifice would be worth it once he achieved success. She believed the day they reunited would become the happiest day of her life. The luxurious Wei residence in the imperial capital was overflowing with distinguished guests. High-ranking officials, wealthy merchants, and influential nobles filled the grand courtyard, each bringing precious gifts to celebrate Wei Shiken's promotion as the empire's newest rising official. Everyone admired the young scholar who had climbed from poverty to power in only 3 years. Many even believed his future would be brighter than anyone else's. Outside the magnificent residence, a young woman stood quietly at the entrance. Her plain blue dress was covered with dust from a journey that had taken months. Her hands were rough from years of grinding herbs and treating patients. The simple cloth bundle she carried contained everything she still owned. That woman was Muzhun. She looked at the familiar name carved above the mansion gate, unable to hide the small smile that appeared on her tired face. She had waited 6 long months after Wei Shiken left for the imperial capital. Every single day she believed he would send someone to bring her home. Instead, the only letter she received asked her to come to the capital without explaining the reason. Even then she refused to doubt him. She convinced herself that her husband must have been too busy adapting to his new position. As she stepped toward the entrance, the guards immediately blocked her path. The moment they noticed her worn clothing, their expressions filled with contempt. The guests nearby began whispering among themselves. No one believed such a poorly dressed village woman could possibly have any connection to the empire's newest official. Some even assumed she had come to beg for money after hearing about Wei Shiken's success. The mocking laughter grew louder with every passing moment. Muzhun lowered her eyes and patiently explained who she was. Instead of allowing her inside, the servants burst into laughter. The more she tried to explain, the more ridiculous she appeared in their eyes. Just as the humiliation reached its peak, the crowd suddenly became silent. Wei Shiken had finally appeared. Dressed in elegant official robes embroidered with golden threads, he looked nothing like the poor scholar who had once depended entirely on his wife. For a brief moment, relief filled Muzhun's eyes. She believed everything would be explained the moment he recognized her. Instead, Wei Shiken looked directly at her with complete indifference. Before every noble guest gathered inside the mansion, he publicly denied having any relationship with the woman standing before him. He declared that countless people had recently tried to claim connections with him after his promotion, and he would never allow anyone to damage his reputation. Every word struck Muzhun harder than a blade. The man she had loved with all her heart had erased her existence with only a few cold sentences. Before she could recover from the shock, another woman slowly walked out of the mansion. She was Han Yurong, the beloved daughter of Minister Han Gowei. Standing proudly beside Wei Shiken, she looked every bit like the future mistress of the residence. Under everyone's watchful eyes, she personally handed Muzhun a divorce letter that had already been signed by Wei Shiken. The meaning was painfully clear. The woman who had shared 3 years of hardship with him had become nothing more than an obstacle to his future. As Muzhun held the divorce letter with trembling hands, Han Yuerong deliberately poured a cup of hot tea over her clothes. The burning liquid soaked her worn dress while the surrounding guests erupted into laughter. Not once did Wei Shiken try to stop the humiliation. He simply watched as if the woman being ridiculed had never been part of his life. Holding the divorce letter tightly against her chest, Muzhun slowly turned away from the mansion without looking back. No one present realized that the woman they had just trampled beneath their feet was the only physician, capable of saving the entire imperial family. As Muzhun walked away from the Wei residence, the divorce letter remained tightly clutched in her trembling hands. The mocking laughter behind her gradually faded into the distance. But every humiliating moment continued echoing inside her heart. No one in the capital knew how much she had sacrificed for the man who had just abandoned her. 3 years earlier, Wei Shiken had been nothing more than a poor scholar living in a small mountain village. His tiny house barely kept out the rain, and many nights he went to bed hungry, because he could not even afford enough rice. Most people believed he would never escape poverty. Only one person never stopped believing in him. That person was Mu Junu. After marrying Wei Shiken, she quietly sold the only inheritance left by her late parents. Every piece of jewelry and every valuable possession disappeared one by one, exchanged for books, paper, ink, and examination fees. Every morning before sunrise, she climbed the surrounding mountains to gather medicinal herbs with her own hands. Without telling her husband, she opened a humble medical clinic near the village market. Every afternoon she treated sick villagers regardless of whether they could afford to pay. Many patients left without giving her a single copper coin, yet Mu Jun never turned anyone away. She believed saving lives was more important than earning wealth. The little money she managed to earn was never spent on herself. Instead, every coin found its way into Wei Shiken's study, allowing him to focus entirely on preparing for the imperial examination. While he buried himself in books, Mu Jun silently carried the weight of their entire household. She chopped firewood, collected herbs, cooked every meal, and continued treating patients until long after sunset. Her hands gradually became rough from years of hard work. Her once delicate skin lost its softness beneath the burning sun and freezing winters. Yet she never complained. To her, watching Wei Shiken move one step closer to his dream was enough to make every hardship worthwhile. Fate, however, tested her more than once. During one winter, Wei Shiken suddenly fell gravely ill with a deadly fever. The village physician declared there was little hope of survival. Without hesitation, Mu Jun ventured alone into the dangerous mountains during a violent snowstorm to search for a rare medicinal herb. She spent an entire night wandering through icy cliffs while risking her own life. By the time she returned, her hands were covered with cuts and frostbite. But the medicine she prepared saved Wei Shiken's life. When he finally recovered, tears filled his eyes as he looked at the exhausted woman beside him. Deeply moved by her devotion, Wei Shiken swore that if he ever achieved success, he would spend the rest of his life protecting and cherishing her. Mu Jun believed every single word. She never realized that promises made during hardship often disappeared once power entered a person's ear. As the imperial examination approached, Mu Jun personally prepared everything for her husband. She carefully packed his belongings, repaired his worn robes, and even stayed awake through the night preparing herbal medicine to keep him healthy during the long journey to the capital. On the morning of his departure, she watched Wei Shiken leave with hopeful eyes. He promised that once he established himself in the imperial capital, he would immediately return to bring her home. Mu Jun waited faithfully for 6 long months. She never imagined that the first letter she received would not be filled with longing. Instead, it invited her to witness the cruelest betrayal of her entire life. The cold evening wind swept through the streets of the imperial capital as Mu Jun walked away from the Wei residence. Behind her, the celebration inside the Wei residence continued without interruption. Music echoed through the streets as guests toasted Wei Shiken's bright future. No one cared that the woman who had sacrificed everything for him had just been cast aside like a worthless stranger. The divorce letter remained hidden inside her sleeve, while the last traces of dignity she had tried so hard to protect had been crushed beneath countless mocking eyes. She had arrived in the capital believing she would finally begin a new life beside the man she loved. Instead, she had lost everything before the sun had even set. With nowhere to go, Mu Jun wandered through unfamiliar streets carrying only a small cloth bundle. The little money she had brought from the village was almost gone after the long journey. She searched for the cheapest inn she could find, hoping to rest for just one night before deciding what to do next. However, the moment the innkeeper noticed her worn clothing, his attitude immediately changed. Without even asking her name, he assumed she was nothing more than a penniless traveler. He coldly refused to rent her a room and ordered her to leave before she drove away his wealthy customers. One rejection quickly became another. Every inn she visited closed its doors the moment they saw her appearance. In the prosperous imperial capital, even a place to sleep had become a luxury she could no longer afford. As darkness covered the city, hunger slowly began to consume her strength. She had not eaten since early that morning. The long journey, endless humiliation, An unbearable heartbreak had already pushed her exhausted body close to its limit. He eventually sat beneath an old tree beside the busy street, quietly hugging the cloth bundle that contained all her remaining possessions. Around her, luxurious carriages passed one after another. The nobles inside laughed happily while servants carried expensive silks, rare treasures, and delicious food through the crowded marketplace. No one even glanced at the lonely woman sitting alone in the shadows. Not far away, several street children noticed the medicinal herbs sticking out of Muzhiyun's bundle. Thinking they might be valuable, they rushed forward and snatched the bundle before running into the crowd. Muzhiyun instinctively chased after them. Inside that bundle were not expensive treasures. They were carefully prepared medicinal herbs she had gathered over many months. Some of them were so rare that replacing them would be almost impossible. Ignoring her exhaustion, she desperately followed the children through the crowded streets. Just as she was about to catch them, one of the children stumbled and the bundle burst open. Dozens of precious herbs scattered across the muddy road. Before Muzhiyun could gather them, several passing horses charged through the street. The priceless herbs she had treasured were instantly crushed beneath iron hooves. Muzhiyun froze where she stood. She silently knelt on the ground, carefully picking up the ruined herbs one by one despite knowing they could no longer be used. For the first time since arriving in the imperial capital, tears slowly rolled down her cheeks. Not because she regretted loving Wei Shiqin, but because everything she had built with her own hands had disappeared in a single day. Just then, the sound of galloping horses suddenly echoed through the silent street. An imposing black carriage bearing the emblem of the Northern Army slowly came to a stop only a few steps away from her. Someone important had arrived. Moments later, the carriage door slowly opened. A tall man dressed in a black robe embroidered with dark golden patterns stepped onto the street. His sharp eyes quietly swept across the surroundings before finally stopping on the lonely woman kneeling on the ground. He was Mo Yanting, the general of the northern frontier. His eyes remained fixed on Muzhiyun. 3 years had passed, yet he still recognized her at a single glance. While everyone else saw nothing more than a poorly dressed village woman, he remembered the person who had once saved his life. 3 years earlier, during a secret mission near the border, Mo Yanting had been ambushed by enemy assassins. Although he defeated every attacker, he suffered a poisoned wound that left him unconscious in the mountains. His guards searched desperately for days without finding any trace of him. By pure coincidence, Muzhiyun had entered the forest to gather medicinal herbs. She discovered the unconscious general lying beneath a cliff with a deadly poison already spreading through his body. She treated his wounds without asking his identity. She remained beside him for several days until he finally regained consciousness. Only after confirming that his life was no longer in danger did she quietly leave without asking for any reward. Before departing, she left behind only a handwritten prescription explaining how to remove the remaining poison. From that day forward, Mo Yanting never forgot the woman who had saved him. He had secretly searched for her many times, but every trail ended without success. He never expected their reunion to happen under such heartbreaking circumstances. Looking at the ruined medicinal herbs scattered across the muddy road, Mo Yanting immediately understood what had happened. Without saying a single word, he knelt beside Muzhiyun. Ignoring the shocked expressions of everyone watching, the empire's most respected general personally picked up the crushed herbs one by one. His soldiers stared in complete disbelief. The surrounding crowd became unusually quiet. No one could understand why the mighty General Mo would lower himself to help an unknown village woman. After gathering every herb that could still be saved, Mo Yanting instructed his guards to purchase every rare medicinal herb available in the capital before sunrise. No matter the price, they were to replace everything Muzhiyun had lost. Even then, Muzhiyun gently declined his kindness. She knew many of those herbs had taken months to collect. Some could never be replaced with money alone. Mo Yanting respected her decision. Instead of forcing his help upon her, he simply ordered one of his trusted guards to secretly protect her from a distance. He had already failed to find her once. This time, he refused to let her suffer alone again. As the black carriage slowly disappeared into the night, Muzhiyun still had no idea who the mysterious man truly was. She only remembered his calm eyes. Eyes completely different from the cold indifference she had seen inside the Wei residence only hours earlier. At that very moment, inside the imperial palace, chaos suddenly erupted. Emperor Tiancheng collapsed during the evening court banquet. Within moments, every imperial physician was urgently summoned to the palace. The entire capital fell into panic. No one realized that the empire's greatest crisis had just begun. Inside the imperial palace, the atmosphere grew heavier with every passing moment. Emperor Tiancheng remained unconscious despite receiving treatment from every imperial physician in the capital. One prescription after another was carefully prepared. Yet every attempt ended in failure. Even the most experienced physicians could do nothing except watch the emperor's condition continue to worsen. Fear silently spread throughout the palace. No one dared imagine the consequences if the Son of Heaven failed to survive. Chief Imperial Physician's son, Mingyuan, remained beside the emperor's bed throughout the entire night. His eyes never left the emperor's weakened pulse. For the first time in decades, he found himself completely powerless. Suddenly, an old memory resurfaced in his mind. Many years ago, there had been another patient suffering from an incurable illness. Every physician had already given up. Yet one man accomplished what everyone believed was impossible. That man was the legendary physician, Master Yunhe. Sun Mingyuan slowly raised his head. A faint glimmer of hope finally appeared in his tired eyes. He immediately ordered the palace archives to retrieve every medical record connected to Master Yunhe. Hours later, countless ancient documents were delivered to the Imperial Medical Hall. Sun Mingyuan personally searched through every page. Hidden among the faded records, he discovered something that made his expression suddenly change. Several years before disappearing from the medical world, Master Yunhe had accepted only one personal disciple. According to the records, that disciple possessed extraordinary medical talent rarely seen in generations. Many believed the disciple had already surpassed Master Yunhe in several difficult treatments. Unfortunately, the archives contained almost no further information. There was no portrait, no residence, no record of where the disciple had gone. Only one sentence remained clearly written at the bottom of the final page. Master Yunhe's complete medical legacy had been entrusted to his only disciple. The entire medical hall immediately fell silent. Every imperial physician understood what those words truly meant. If that mysterious disciple could be found, the emperor might still have a chance to survive. Without wasting another moment, Sun Mingyuan ordered every palace messenger to begin searching across the entire imperial capital. Not a single place was to be overlooked. No matter what it cost, they had to find Master Yunhe's disciple before it was too late. At that very same moment, Mu Jun quietly finished sorting the damaged herbs she had managed to recover. She carefully wrapped each remaining herb inside a worn cloth before preparing to leave the abandoned shrine. She had no idea that countless palace messengers had already begun searching every corner of the imperial capital. Nor did she realize that the fate of the entire empire would soon rest in her hands. By dawn, dozens of palace messengers had already left the imperial palace in every direction. Each of them carried the same imperial order. The sole disciple of Master Yunhe had to be found before the emperor's condition became irreversible. Medical halls throughout the imperial capital were searched one after another. Every respected physician was questioned. Every herbal merchant was asked the same question. Had anyone seen the disciple of Master Yunhe? The answer was always the same. No one knew. Some had only heard rumors. Others believed the mysterious disciple had disappeared years ago. As the search continued, another order was quietly delivered from the palace. Any person who could provide reliable information would receive a generous imperial reward. Within hours, the entire capital began talking about the mysterious physician. Meanwhile, inside the Ministry of Personnel, Wei Shiken proudly attended his first official court meeting. His recent promotion had placed him among many influential officials, and he was eager to prove his worth. Although he remained the newest member of the court, his talent quickly attracted attention. Many senior officials praised his intelligence. Their compliments only strengthened his growing ambition. Wei Shiken silently believed that leaving his past behind had been the correct decision. To climb higher, sacrifices had been necessary. At that very moment, one of the palace eunuchs hurried into the ministry carrying an urgent decree. Every official immediately fell silent. The emperor's illness had become known throughout the court. His Majesty remained unconscious. All officials were ordered to assist the imperial palace in every possible way. No one was permitted to ignore the imperial command. Wei Shiken immediately stepped forward. Hoping to distinguish himself, he volunteered to help organize the search for Master Yunhei's missing disciple. His proposal was quickly approved. He believed finding the mysterious physician would become the greatest opportunity of his career. Never once did the thought cross his mind that the person he had just divorced was the very individual the entire empire was desperately searching for. Elsewhere, Muzhun walked quietly through one of the capital's largest herbal markets. She hoped to replace at least a few of the rare herbs destroyed the previous day. However, after asking several merchants, she discovered that many of the medicines she needed had already been purchased before sunrise. Not a single shop had any remaining stock. She found the situation unusual. The capital had never experienced such a sudden shortage of medicinal herbs. Overnight, the Imperial Medical Academy had purchased and requisitioned large quantities of rare medicinal herbs under an emergency decree issued. After the emperor's sudden illness, unable to replace the missing herbs, Muzhun quietly left the market. She decided to travel beyond the western hills the following morning, where wild medicinal plants still grew untouched. As she disappeared into the crowded streets, two figures continued following her from a careful distance. Neither of them dared approach. They had only one mission: to ensure that no harm would come to the woman their general had sworn to protect. Far away inside the imperial palace, Emperor Tiancheng's breathing suddenly became weaker. Chief Imperial Physician Sun Mingyuan slowly closed his eyes. He knew time was running out. If Master Yunhei's disciple could not be found within the next few days, even heaven itself might not be able to save the emperor. The imperial search continued without pause. Day and night, palace messengers traveled across the imperial capital carrying the emperor's decree. Every renowned physician was questioned. Every medical academy was investigated. Every herbal merchant was asked about the whereabouts of Master Yunhei's only disciple. Yet every search ended in disappointment. Most people had only heard Master Yunhei's legendary name. Very few had ever met him in person. Even fewer knew that he had once accepted a single disciple. Inside the Imperial Medical Academy, Chief Imperial Physician Sun Mingyuan refused to rest. Maps, medical records, and ancient documents covered the large wooden table before him. Every clue was carefully examined. Every forgotten record was reviewed again and again. He refused to believe that someone as extraordinary as Master Yunhei's disciple could simply disappear without leaving a trace. Just before sunset, an elderly herbal merchant was escorted into the academy. His back was slightly bent with age, but his memory remained remarkably sharp. After carefully reading the old records, the merchant slowly nodded. He admitted that many years ago he had personally delivered rare medicinal herbs to Master Yunhei's clinic near the northern frontier. According to his memory, Master Yunhei was never alone. A young woman always assisted him. Although she rarely spoke, her medical skills were already astonishing despite her young age. The merchant still remembered watching her identify hundreds of medicinal herbs with a single glance. Even Master Yunhei openly praised her talent. The entire room fell silent. Sun Mingyuan immediately stepped forward. He asked whether the merchant remembered the young woman's name. The old man closed his eyes, searching through memories buried for years. After a long silence, he finally spoke. Muzhun. The name echoed through the medical hall. Sun Mingyuan's eyes widened. For the first time since the emperor collapsed, the investigation had uncovered a real lead. Without wasting another moment, he immediately ordered every palace messenger to search for a young female physician named Muzhun. Every city gate was notified. Every inn received the description. Every official office was instructed to report any information immediately. Meanwhile, inside the Ministry of Personnel, Wei Shiken was reviewing reports from the ongoing search. His attention was focused entirely on locating Master Yunhei's mysterious disciple. When the newest report arrived, his eyes briefly paused upon a familiar name, Mu Junun. For a single moment his heart skipped a beat. The name was identical to that of the woman he had divorced only the previous day. A faint smile soon appeared across his face. He quietly dismissed the coincidence. There were countless people across the empire who shared the same name. The gifted disciple praised by Master Yunhei could never be the simple village woman who had spent 3 years grinding herbs inside a humble clinic. Without another thought, Wei Shiken calmly placed the report aside. Outside the ministry, another imperial messenger galloped toward the western district. He carried an urgent order that would soon change Mu Jian's destiny forever. At that very moment, Mo Yunting entered the imperial palace after receiving an emergency summons. The usually calm palace had fallen into complete chaos. Without wasting a single moment, Mo Yunting headed straight for the imperial medical hall. Chief Imperial Physician Sun Mingyuan was waiting there with an exhausted expression. Dark circles surrounded his eyes after 2 sleepless days spent trying to save the emperor. As soon as Mo Yunting entered the hall, Sun Mingyuan slowly shook his head. Every treatment had failed. Every prescription known to the Imperial Medical Academy had been exhausted. The emperor's condition continued to worsen with every passing hour. After a long silence, Sun Mingyuan finally revealed the truth. Master Yunhei had passed away the previous year. The legendary physician who had once saved countless lives could no longer answer the empire's call. Before his death, however, he had entrusted his complete medical legacy to his one and only disciple. Sun Mingyuan lowered his voice. According to the investigation, that disciple possessed medical skills that might have already surpassed Master Yunhei himself. If anyone in the empire still had the ability to save His Majesty, it could only be that disciple. Mo Yunting remained silent. His expression gradually became more serious. He asked only one question. "What is the disciple's name?" Sun Mingyuan answered without hesitation. "Mu Zhiyun." The moment those 2 words reached his ears, Mo Yunting froze. The image of the young physician who had saved his life 3 years earlier immediately resurfaced in his mind. Then came the memory of the woman he had unexpectedly met again only days before. Could they truly be the same person? Without saying another word, Mo Yunting immediately ordered the Northern Army to strengthen security throughout the imperial capital. He also instructed his trusted guards to continue protecting Mu Zhiyun from the shadows. Meanwhile, Mu Zhiyun arrived at a small herbal stall hidden within the western district. She hoped to replace the precious herbs that had been destroyed after leaving the Wei residence. The elderly herbal merchant carefully examined the remaining herbs she carried. With a helpless sigh, he explained that nearly every rare medicinal herb in the capital had already been requisitioned under an emergency decree issued by the Imperial Medical Academy. The emperor's sudden illness had emptied the city's herbal markets overnight. Even so, Mu Zhiyun showed no disappointment. She calmly thanked the old merchant and prepared to leave. Just then, the thunder of galloping horses echoed through the marketplace. Imperial messengers wearing the emperor's insignia rode into the crowded street. The captain stepped forward and announced that they were searching for Master Yunhei's only disciple. Anyone who possessed information would be rewarded by the imperial court. The elderly merchant looked toward Mu Zhiyun. After a brief moment of hesitation, he slowly spoke. He believed the young woman standing before him might be the very physician they had been searching for. The captain slowly stepped forward and respectfully asked whether the young woman before him was the physician named Mu Zhiyun. After a brief moment of silence, Mu Zhiyun calmly nodded. She admitted that her name was indeed Mu Zhiyun. The imperial messengers immediately bowed with respect. They explained that the imperial palace urgently required her presence. Without asking another question, Mu Zhiyun quietly picked up her medicine chest. She understood that if the palace had mobilized so many messengers, the patient's condition could only be extremely serious. Escorted by the imperial guards, she rode toward the imperial palace. Hidden among the crowd, one of General Mo Yunting's trusted guards watched everything unfold. After confirming that Mu Zhiyun was safely under imperial protection, he immediately rode back to report the news. Not long afterward, Mu Jun arrived before the towering gates of the imperial palace. Rows of elite guards stood motionless beneath the crimson walls. Waiting at the entrance was General Mo Yunting. The moment their eyes met, neither of them spoke. 3 years had passed since their first meeting near the northern frontier. Now fate had brought them together once again. Mo Yunting simply gave a slight nod before stepping aside. Without a single unnecessary word, he personally escorted Mu Jun toward the Imperial Medical Hall. Inside the hall, dozens of imperial physicians immediately turned to look at the young woman who had just entered. Many frowned in disbelief. Some exchanged doubtful glances. She looked far too young. She wore simple clothes. No one could believe that this ordinary young woman was the sole disciple of the legendary Master Yunhe. Even Chief Imperial Physician's son Mingyuan carefully studied her in silence. Before trusting the Emperor's life to her hands, he needed absolute certainty. Meanwhile, another familiar face slowly appeared at the entrance of the hall, Wei Shiken. Having assisted with the imperial search throughout the day, he had been summoned to report the latest findings. The moment he saw Mu Jun standing inside the Imperial Medical Hall, his entire body froze. Disbelief filled his eyes. He could not understand why the woman he had cast aside only days earlier had suddenly appeared in the most important place within the empire. Before he could ask a single question, Sun Mingyuan stepped forward. He asked whether she was truly the only disciple of the late Master Yunhe. Mu Jun neither showed pride nor hesitation. She calmly acknowledged her master's name. The entire hall instantly fell silent. Wei Shiken felt his mind go completely blank. The woman he had believed to be nothing more than an ordinary village physician had been hiding an identity powerful enough to command the attention of the entire imperial court. Without another word, Sun Mingyuan led Mu Jun into the emperor's chamber. The room was filled with the heavy scent of medicine. After examining Emperor Tiancheng for only a few moments, Mu Jun slowly withdrew her hand. A trace of surprise appeared in her otherwise calm eyes. She had already discovered the true cause of the emperor's illness. While every imperial physician in the palace had been treating the wrong disease, Chief Imperial Physician's son Mingyuan immediately stepped forward. He anxiously waited for her conclusion. Instead of answering immediately, Mu Jun quietly looked around the room. Her eyes stopped on the bowls of medicine placed beside the emperor's bed. One after another, she examined every prescription that had been prepared over the past 2 days. The deeper she looked, the more solemn her expression became. She finally realized that every physician inside the palace had made the very same mistake. They had treated only the emperor's symptoms, not the true source of his illness. The medicines intended to save him had instead weakened his body even further. A wave of shock spread through the Imperial Medical Hall. Several imperial physicians immediately objected. They insisted that every prescription had been prepared according to the finest medical texts preserved by the Imperial Academy. No one believed they could all have been wrong. Mu Jun remained completely calm. She patiently explained that the emperor was not suffering from an ordinary internal illness. The pulse concealed another condition that had gone unnoticed. A rare toxin had silently remained inside his body for many years. The sudden collapse had merely forced the hidden poison to erupt all at once. The room instantly fell into stunned silence. Even Sun Mingyuan's expression changed. He hurriedly examined the emperor once again. This time, following Mu Jun's guidance, he finally discovered the subtle signs he had overlooked. One by one, the other imperial physicians repeated the examination. Every one of them reached the same conclusion. Not a single word Mu Jun had spoken was wrong. Only moments earlier they had questioned her qualifications. Now, the greatest physicians in the empire stood speechless before a young woman they had dismissed at first sight. Wei Shiken watched the entire scene in complete disbelief. The woman he had abandoned was calmly correcting the Imperial Medical Academy without raising her voice. For the first time, uncertainty began to creep into his heart. Nearby, Mo Yunting quietly observed everything. A faint smile almost appeared on his usually expressionless face. He had trusted the woman who once saved his life. Once again, she had proven that his trust had not been misplaced. Mu Jun slowly looked around the room. Without the slightest hint of arrogance, she calmly delivered one final warning. If the emperor received even one more bowl of the current medicine, he would never live to see tomorrow's sunrise. No one dared question her again. The entire imperial medical hall fell into absolute silence. After identifying the emperor's true illness, Zhiyun immediately began preparing a new prescription. However, after checking the medicine cabinet, she quietly stopped. Two essential herbs were missing. Without them, even she could not completely suppress the poison. Chief Imperial Physician Sun Mingyuan's expression instantly darkened. Those two herbs had already disappeared from every pharmacy in the capital. Even the Imperial Medical Academy had failed to obtain them. Despair once again filled the chamber. Just as everyone believed hope had vanished, Mo Yunting quietly stepped forward without speaking. He placed a finely crafted wooden medicine box before Zhiyun. She slowly opened it for the first time since entering the palace. Surprise appeared in her calm eyes. Inside the box were the exact two rare herbs she needed, perfectly preserved. The entire Imperial Medical Hall stared in disbelief. No one understood how Mo Yunting had managed to find medicines that even the Imperial Court could not obtain. Only Zhiyun understood their significance. They were the very herbs that had been destroyed only days earlier. Without seeking recognition, Mo Yunting had quietly searched for every missing herb after witnessing her years of hard work ruined. Before his eyes, he had simply waited for the right moment to return them. Their eyes met for only a brief second. Neither of them needed to explain anything. Chief Imperial Physician Sun Mingyuan quickly ordered everyone to prepare the new prescription this time. Every imperial physician followed Zhiyun's instructions without daring to question a single detail. Even the oldest physicians carefully assisted her. The young woman they had mocked only moments earlier had now become the only person capable of saving the emperor. After the medicine was finally completed, one of the senior physicians respectfully carried the medicine tray. Rather than allowing an attendant to deliver it, he personally escorted Zhiyun toward the emperor's chamber. At that very moment, Wei Shikan was walking through the palace corridor. After reporting to several court officials as he turned the corner, he suddenly stopped. Not far ahead, Zhiyun slowly walked through the corridor beside her. Chief Imperial Physician Sun Mingyuan and several senior imperial physicians respectfully accompanied her. The elderly physicians who usually commanded the highest respect within the palace were quietly following behind her. Some even lowered their heads while discussing the prescription she had created. Wei Shikan stood frozen. The woman he had once dismissed as nothing more than a humble village physician was now receiving the highest respect from the greatest physicians in the empire. Only now did he realize how blind he had truly been. As she walked through the corridor, Zhiyun noticed a familiar figure standing in the distance. For a brief moment, memories of the humiliation she had endured outside the Wei residence flashed across her mind. The divorce letter, the shattered medicinal herbs, the years of sacrifice that had been repaid with betrayal. Those memories no longer brought pain. They only reminded her that walking away had been the right decision. Without the slightest hesitation, she calmly looked away and continued forward. To her, Wei Shikan had already become nothing more than a stranger. Yet to Wei Shikan that single moment hurt more than any public humiliation. Without slowing her pace, Zhiyun continued toward the emperor's chamber. The emperor's chamber remained completely silent. Every pair of eyes was fixed on Emperor Tianzheng. After taking the medicine prepared by Zhiyun, his breathing gradually became steady. The terrifying black tint beneath his fingernails slowly began to fade. Chief Imperial Physician Sun Mingyuan immediately stepped forward to examine the emperor's pulse once more. His trembling fingers carefully rested upon the emperor's wrist. A few moments later, his eyes widened in disbelief. The poison had finally stopped spreading. The imperial physicians hurried forward one after another. Each of them examined the emperor personally. Every result was exactly the same. None of them could find a single mistake in Zhiyun's diagnosis or prescription. The chamber fell into stunned silence. The physicians who had doubted her only hours earlier now looked at her with nothing but admiration. At that moment, Emperor Tianzheng slowly opened his eyes. Relief instantly filled the chamber. Chief Imperial Physician Sun Mingyuan immediately knelt before the emperor. The other imperial physicians quickly followed. Standing quietly beside the bed, Zhiyun simply observed the emperor's condition. She showed neither excitement nor pride. To her, saving lives had always been the duty of a physician. The emperor's gaze slowly shifted toward Zhiyun. After learning that she had saved his life, he thanked her for preserving both his life and the stability of the empire. Zhiyun respectfully bowed and calmly explained that the poison had only been temporarily suppressed. Several more treatments would still be required before the emperor could fully recover. Emperor Tiancheng nodded with satisfaction. He praised her honesty even more than her extraordinary medical skill. Nearby, Mo Yunting silently watched the entire exchange. Seeing Zhiyun remain so calm despite receiving the emperor's praise, a faint sense of admiration appeared in his usually unreadable eyes. She had never sought recognition. Yet recognition always found its way to her. Outside the emperor's chamber, the chief eunuch announced that His Majesty had regained consciousness. A wave of excitement swept through the waiting officials. Several ministers immediately began discussing the miraculous physician who had saved the emperor. One elderly official remarked that even the Imperial Medical Academy had failed. Yet Master Yunhei's only disciple had accomplished the impossible. Another official quietly replied that the young physician named Zhiyun had single-handedly saved the empire from chaos. Standing silently among the crowd, Wei Shiken felt every word pierce his heart. The woman he had cast aside had become the greatest contributor to the imperial court. For the first time in his life, he truly understood what he had lost. The morning court convened as usual inside the magnificent imperial hall. Civil officials and military generals stood in orderly rows beneath the dragon throne. Among them stood Wei Shiken. Although his expression remained calm, his heart had long been thrown into turmoil. Moments later, Zhiyun entered the imperial hall under the guidance of General Mo Yunting and Chief Imperial Physician Sun Mingyuan. The moment she appeared, countless eyes turned toward her. Only a few days ago, almost no one inside the capital had known her name. Now she had become the physician who had saved the emperor. Emperor Tiancheng slowly rose from the throne. Before the entire imperial court, he publicly praised Zhiyun for preserving both his life and the stability of the empire. As a reward, he bestowed upon her the title of Imperial Consulting Physician. He further granted her a luxurious residence near the imperial palace, along with countless treasures, rare medicines, gold and silk. The entire hall erupted into astonished whispers. Standing among the civil officials, Wei Shiken silently watched everything unfold. The woman he had abandoned was now standing beneath the emperor's gaze, receiving honors that even high-ranking officials could only dream of. Every imperial decree felt like another blow to his pride. After accepting the imperial rewards, Zhiyun respectfully thanked the emperor. However, she calmly stated that the credit did not belong to her alone. Without General Mo Yunting's timely assistance in providing the two rare medicinal herbs, the emperor's treatment could never have been completed. Emperor Tiancheng smiled with satisfaction. He praised Mo Yunting for his foresight and once again commended both of them for protecting the empire together. For a brief moment, Mo Yunting and Zhiyun looked at one another. Neither spoke. Standing among the officials, Wei Shiken watched the silent exchange. A bitter feeling slowly spread through his chest. For the first time, he realized someone else now stood beside the woman who had once devoted everything to him. After the morning court was dismissed, officials gradually left the imperial hall. Wei Shiken hesitated for a long moment before finally walking toward Zhiyun. He stopped only a few steps away. Unable to suppress the question tormenting him, he asked why she had never revealed that she was Master Yunhei's only disciple. Before Zhiyun could answer, a tall figure quietly stepped between them, Mo Yunting. He stood calmly at Zhiyun's side. His presence alone forced Wei Shiken to instinctively perform a respectful cupped fist salute. As one of the empire's highest-ranking generals, Mo Yunting's status far surpassed Wei Shiken's. Mo Yunting looked at him with calm, unreadable eyes. He replied that true ability had never needed to announce itself. Only those blinded by arrogance failed to recognize the treasure already in their hands. Wei Shiken lowered his head. He wanted to respond. Yet before the empire's most respected general, he did not dare argue. Without another glance, Mo Yunting turned toward Mu Zhiyun. He politely offered to escort her to her newly bestowed residence. Mu Zhiyun quietly accepted. As they walked away together, Wei Shiken silently watched their departing figures. The woman who had once waited countless nights for him was now walking beside another man. As they walked through the palace grounds, neither of them spoke for a long while. Finally, Mu Zhiyun softly asked why he had continued helping her time and time again. Mo Yunting smiled faintly. He reminded her of a wounded soldier she had rescued 3 years earlier near the northern border. A soldier everyone else had believed would never survive. Mu Zhiyun suddenly stopped walking. Fragments of old memories slowly returned. The injured man she had carried back to the clinic. She had never imagined that ordinary soldier had been Mo Yunting, the legendary general who now protected the entire empire. Mo Yunting looked at her with quiet sincerity. He told her that 3 years ago she had saved his life. Now it was his turn to make sure no one could ever hurt her again. For a brief moment, Mu Zhiyun could not find the words to answer. After everything she had endured, this was the first time someone had chosen to stand in front of her instead of leaving her behind. The loneliness she had carried since leaving the Wei residence quietly began to fade. For the first time, she no longer felt that she was facing the world alone. The imperial banquet continued late into the evening. Dressed in elegant robes, Mu Zhiyun became the center of everyone's attention. Noble families and high-ranking officials eagerly surrounded her. They praised the young physician who had saved the emperor and protected the empire from chaos. Many noble ladies warmly invited her to future gatherings. Others hoped to seek her guidance in medicine. Seated beside her, Mo Yunting remained as quiet as ever. Yet whenever someone raised a toast to Mu Zhiyun, he silently lifted his own cup as well. His calm gaze never left her for long. Far away at the most distant table, Wei Shiken and Han Yurong watched everything unfold. Throughout the banquet, Wei Shiken could not stop looking toward Mu Zhiyun. Dressed in elegant court robes, she looked more beautiful and radiant than he had ever remembered. Every smile she gave, every word she spoke, only reminded him of everything he had thrown away. For the first time, he admitted to himself that if Han Yurong had never entered his life, he and Mu Zhiyun might still be living a peaceful and honorable life together. Beside him, Han Yurong noticed his lingering gaze. Jealousy and fear slowly consumed her heart. Unable to endure it any longer, she secretly followed Mu Zhiyun after she quietly left the banquet hall to enjoy the cool night air. Standing beneath the lanterns of the palace garden, Han Yurong blocked her path. She accused Mu Zhiyun of saving the emperor only to attract Wei Shiken's attention. She mocked her for shamelessly trying to steal another woman's husband. Mu Zhiyun remained perfectly calm. She neither defended herself nor argued to her. Han Yurong's words no longer held any meaning. Just then, Wei Shiken hurried into the garden. Having overheard the accusation, he immediately stopped Han Yurong. He warned her not to recklessly drag the emperor's name into her jealousy. But Han Yurong only believed he was defending Mu Zhiyun. The man she had sacrificed everything to obtain was now standing before her, protecting another woman. The two began arguing bitterly. Seeing the couple accuse one another without end, Mu Zhiyun quietly turned away. She had no interest in watching people who had once trampled on her destroy each other. As she walked toward the quiet palace corridor, she found Mo Yunting standing beneath the moonlight. He had been waiting for her. Mo Yunting slowly turned around. Their eyes met. Neither spoke a single word, yet standing beneath the same moon, they both felt an unexpected sense of peace. Several days later, the Imperial Censorate completed its investigation into Minister Han. Evidence revealed that the Han family had abused its authority for personal gain. Several incompetent relatives had been appointed to official positions through the family's influence. Emperor Tiancheng immediately stripped Minister Han of his office. The once powerful Han family fell overnight. Wei Shiken was also removed from his position after the investigation revealed that his promotion had benefited from the Han family's political influence. The glory he had once been so proud of disappeared in a single day. Within the Han family, everyone blamed Han Yurong and Wei Shiken for bringing disaster upon them. At the Wei residence, Wei Shiken could no longer hide the resentment in his heart. He blamed Han Yurong for tempting him and destroying his marriage with Mu Jun. Han Yurong sneered coldly. She reminded him that no one had forced him to abandon his own wife. It had been his greed for status and power that led him to choose her. After everything they had done together, he now blamed her for his own choices. The two argued like enemies. The love they had once been so proud of had become nothing more than endless resentment. Wei Shiken could no longer bear returning home. Every day, he watched Mu Jun earn the admiration of the entire capital, while he was left with nothing but regret. At last, he came to Mu Jian's new residence. Standing before the gates, he confessed everything. He admitted that losing her had been the greatest mistake of his life. He promised that he would divorce Han Yurong if only Mu Jun would give him one final chance. Mu Jun quietly looked at the man she had once loved with all her heart. She suddenly realized that she had wasted years loving a man who had always loved himself more than anyone else. She calmly said, "The Mu Jun who loved you gave you everything she had. You were the one who let her disappear forever." Wei Shiken stood frozen. At that moment, he finally understood. No amount of regret could ever bring back the woman he had abandoned. Without another word, Mu Jun calmly walked toward the waiting carriage. A servant respectfully opened the carriage door for her. Inside, Mo Yunting was already waiting. As Mu Jun stepped inside, their eyes met once more. The carriage slowly disappeared into the distance. Wei Shiken remained standing alone, watching the woman he had once thrown away walk toward a future that would never include him. 1 year later, after being personally granted a noble title by Emperor Tiancheng for her extraordinary service to the empire, Mu Jun married Mo Yunting under an imperial decree. The union of the empire's greatest physician and its most celebrated general became one of the grandest weddings in the capital's history. Several months later, at a tea gathering attended by the noble ladies of the capital, Mu Jun arrived with the dignity of both an imperial noble lady and General Mo's wife. The moment Han Yurong and Wei Shiken saw her, they had no choice but to respectfully bow according to imperial etiquette. The woman they had once mocked, humiliated, and trampled beneath their feet now stood far above them through her own merit. Mu Jun simply acknowledged their greeting before walking past without a second glance. The past no longer deserved even a single glance from her.